The views expressed are not necessarily those of KSCJ and Powell Broadcasting Company. This program is not intended to replace the advice of doctors or other clinical providers. Consult with your practitioner to ensure the proper course of action for you.
Welcome to When Things Aren't Going Well on AM 1360, FM 94.9 KSCJ. This program is dedicated to your mental health wellness and brought to you by Family Services, a United Way partner agency. Here's your host, Art Silva.
Good morning and welcome to When Things Aren't Going Well. This show is all about your mental wellness and how you can help yourself navigate the daily highway of life. Our show is brought to you by Family Services and an anonymous sponsor. Family Services is the outpatient agency of Boys and Girls Home and is a United Way partner agency serving the Siouxland community. Joining me today from Family Services are my friends Brenda Geisinger and Rosie Strunk. And today we're going to talk about grandparents parenting. So with that, good morning, Rosie. Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, we've always started our shows, and I've been remiss in not talking a little more about our friends that are here today and what they do at Family Services. So Brenda, our Chief Operating Officer, will you want to describe a little bit of what you do at Family Services?
Well, I wear multiple hats, but overall, I keep the operations going and just kind of help the team move forward down the field and oversee things in all the departments.
And Rosie?
Me, I'm one of the clinical therapists at Family Services. I am the oldest one there because I've been there 41 years. So I've got a lot of history underneath my belt.
And experience.
Well, we're glad that both of you are here with us today, and we thank you for sharing. And today's topic, we're going to talk about grandparents parenting. So with that, why don't we put a little scope on this, specifically, what are we addressing today?
I think that throughout the years, there has been more grandparents stepping up and parenting their grandkids than maybe there's been years long ago. And I think I was looking up some statistics, and there's like about 3 million grandparents that are parenting, and there's like 13 million children that are being raised by their grandparents. Now, I don't know if that's figures right in the sense of right now, but that means that there's a lot of grandparents who are taking a role that's different than what they had anticipated.
Brenda?
Yeah, I think the world is changing. Sometimes parents are having to live with multi-generational kind of situations. So a grandparent may be filling in as daycare. They may be the sole parent for a grandchild. Things are changing than they were just 10 years ago. Things are different.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you this. How does this differ from back in the day when the extended family, you had a grandparent at home or whatever? What's different today about the traditional grandparenting?
What's different today for tradition? Well, traditionally, grandparents, in my point of view, were not the primary caregivers. Are the ones who are disciplining and doing those kinds of daily kinds of routines. It's more years ago, it was like, come over to grandma's house and we'll have fun, and then they leave. And now there's a difference where grandparents are moving into having grand families, or kinship care is what they call it, also where they're doing more of the primary caregiving, in a sense, for their grandkids.
Has the change in our society prompted this growth?
Well, our society is changing in lots of different ways, and I think that moving into a grand family, there are circumstances that tend to happen, like their children either have mental health issues, are incarcerated, maybe substance abuse, their deployment. There's a lot of different types of things that are happening that create having a different grandparenting role.
Very, very interesting. I think most of us traditionally grow up with, you got grandma, grandpa, and they were kind of like temporary help that would step in, and they had a different set of rules that you could play by. But now it seems like the grandparents, and I know in the agency I've seen grandparents come in with the kids, and a lot of times they're the last resort. And we're lucky to have grandparents taking on this role. But do you see more of that? Do you see it more in adolescence? Do you see it more with younger kids, or right across the board?
I think that it's across the board. And I just want to, honor the grandparents that are able to do this because, there's different stages of when we are growing in our age. And sometimes when we're with younger children or even teenagers, it takes a little different energy than when we are, as a grandparent. And if we're in that primary care position in a sense. And so I just want to honor those grandparents who are out there who are doing this in any capacity because it's a different kind of world out there with kids. They're learning things a whole lot differently than what we had when we were growing up.
The extended family, what's happened there? Have you seen a deterioration? The aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, does distance obviously impact that? I'm just wondering, what are you seeing? Because I think with the dual working families and all the stress, the pressure and the stress, and from the people that I know that are grandparents that are parenting, like you said, it varies. Different stories from everybody. Some's out of need, and the need differs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering, what's the root cause? How do you get upstream on this kind of deal?
I'm not sure if I quite understand what your question is and the root cause of
the grandparent parenting. I mean, what can we fix? What can we fix? Where is the problem?
I think there's a lot of things that come into that because if you have if their child is incarcerated, in the sense of fixing that, their son or daughter is incarcerated, so you're helping those children, deal with whatever those dynamics are when you have something like that or mental health issues or whatever. I think in the sense of fixing, it's like more helping out these grandparents in some form or fashion that gives them assistance as they're doing the grand families types of things. Because children have a lot of variety of circumstances, be it trauma or just mad because things have changed. There's a lot of dynamics about that.
Now, how do we differ in terms of other cultures? That extended grandparent family is really part of that nuclear family in a lot of cultures, where the grandparents live in the house, live with the family, and come along. And I assume, I don't know for sure, if they pick up parenting roles in doing that. So would you count those people in that same category, those grandparents in the same category as the people you see?
I don't know if I would say one's more positive or whatever, because you don't want to negate, from what a grandparent who is doing, and it's not a multicultural thing. You got to, I think that there's positives in a lot of different ways. I think that multiculturally, that there is a level of we know that there's assistance. We know that there's people who are helping. Children recognize that their grandfather or great-grandfather or grandmother are there to help them.
Okay, interesting. Brenda, your experience. Brenda, you're a grandparent.
I am a grandparent. Very proud grandma.
Okay.
I think, as Rosie was saying, things are changing. And to be a grandparent is different today than it was years ago. And some are still very traditional. I am more of a traditional grandparent. My grandchild is a distance away. So I do the visits and I get to bake the cookies and run and play, but I get to send them back home. But the circumstance may change, and I would step up to the plate to be a parent any day. But I also know to be a parent today is very different than it was 10 years ago. Technology is different. You have to stay on top of things. Kids are exposed to things a lot quicker. And to understand all of that, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of communication. And when you're older, you get tired. I like to go to bed around 9:30. And when you have a child that wants to stay out till midnight, it's exhausting. You worry and are they going to get home safe? And even if you're more elderly in age, it gets exhausting. You don't necessarily get to take a nap at 4 p.m. If you have a 2-year-old that all of a sudden wants to watch Elmo on TV and you hear those kind of things. So I think things are changing and it's becoming more frequent that this is happening, and in some ways more acceptable. And everybody recognizes that our situations are different, but it's okay. And it's okay to ask for help. And if you are a grandparent parenting, you may have to reach out to daycares, and that may not be something you're experienced in looking for. And how do you find a daycare for a little one? And asking those questions and how to work through all of those new things that are different now.
Well, that's great. This is a great spot to take a break and come back with this discussion. We're going to take a break right now. You're listening to When Things Aren't Going Well right here on 1360 KSCJ.
Let's face it, that happens to all of us. However, the pandemic has compounded all of our lives and activities. Even the simplest tasks seem harder. Hi, I'm Brenda Geisinger, the Chief Operating Officer at the Boys and Girls Home and Family Services. Family Services is a United Way partner agency serving children and families of our community, and we're here to help. If you'd like to learn more about Family Services, please contact us via email, website, Facebook, or phone Mary Pickens. At Family Services, we change lives.
Welcome back to When Things Aren't Going Well on KSCJ. Here's Art Silva.
Good morning. Welcome back to When Things Aren't Going Well. I'm here with my friends from Family Services, Brenda Geisinger and Rosie Strunk. And today our topic is when grandparents parenting. So we spent the first half of our show talking about some situations where the grandparents are in that situation of parenting. A lot more going on today. Rosie quoted us some numbers. I was amazed at 13 million grandparents are parenting in the country. That's quite a number. And it is a little different than it was before. Little societal changes. We have some culture changes where families, grandparents in the family take a different little role. But bottom line is a lot of grandparents are parenting today. And we want to talk about this half of the show, what we can do to help them. Where can they get help? What do we need to be sensitive to about their role in their situation? So with that, I'll open it up. Rosie, you want to help us with that?
Well, some of the grandparents that I work with, when they start to have their grandfamilies, that part of what they're struggling with is developing a routine. And one of the things that I encourage them to do is develop their routine, because whatever routine the children have had before is just going to be different. So one of the things that I encourage them to develop a routine, if they have younger children or kids in school, to go and connect with the teachers and get educated on what their grandchild is doing in school. Because many times kids will come home and they'll share things and grandparents aren't aware of stuff. So talking to the teachers is extremely important. I think Brenda had said earlier about looking at childcare, because I think grandparents need to have some breaks too. They need to have their time where they get rest and leisure time and also relaxation. So childcare, reaching out for different childcare kinds of things. There's also the county extension office has a grandparent class that you can go and take and do some get some support from other people who are also in the grandparenting position. So it can be a group process that can help them look at things. But, a lot of it is, and then the discipline is developing a routine, figuring out the discipline that you do. Because when you're just having them there for a fun time with grandpa and grandma, you don't really use discipline in the same way.
Different set of rules.
Yeah. So it's like
You want a cookie, doesn't work.
No, right. I don't want to do that chore today, Grandma. And grandmas might go, okay, I'll do it. But then that's taking them out of your routine. So discipline is also a part of figuring out how to do that. And sometimes, you need to go, either the children or the grandparents might need extra help. So they might need to go see a therapist, or maybe taking a parenting class that can help them kind of, regroup themselves as to what might be helpful for children nowadays, in a sense.
Do you see grandparents that are in this situation due to the fact they come to you because they think their child might need some help, their grandchild is experiencing, they're noticing that their grandchild is experiencing a change in behavior? Do you see grandparents that come in like that, Brenda?
I think sometimes that can be the impetus of the conversation. The grandchild may not be adjusting well, and it's a big shock to them, or the expectations are different than what they're used to. Grandpa and grandma may have very set rules, and they may have not had that in the past. Or it could be vice versa. They were in a very structured, maybe an abusive situation, and now they're in a very loving, caring environment. It could be very different. It's a different household. And so their grandchild may be struggling with that and come for help. And that opens up the dialogue of making the family heal and come together as a functioning family and a routine and a schedule. And what are those roles and relationships going to be? As Rosie mentioned, and I have mentioned, routines are critical, and also understanding what's going on. I know for myself, math today is very different when I was in school. I can't even begin to understand it. But just knowing those little differences and having that conversation, and maybe having your grandchild help you understand what they're going through in their world, will help that communication get better and stronger. But again, it's helping each other and reaching out when you need the help, whether you as the grandparent are feeling overwhelmed or depressed or really anxious about the changes, or the grandchild is needing help. Either one, it doesn't really matter as long as you're reaching out and asking for help and support.
Very interesting. When you kind of go back to that and you're looking for that type of support, does physical ability come into play with the grandparents?
Yes, it comes into play. And I think that that's one of those challenging types of dynamics for grandparents. And depending upon your age, you may be a grand family when you're 50 compared to a grand family when you're 60-some. And so it's really important for grandparents to physically take care of themselves and get their rest, relaxation, and whatever they need to do in regards to their physical care. When they're taking care of their physical care, then they're able to help, whatever they need to for the children. I do want to piggyback on something that Brenda had said. Technology is a big part of the world these days, and many times grandparents are not tuned into technology. And I have suggested to grandparents to have the children teach them, and then also get educated on themselves, with themselves in different ways, because technology is the world right now for kids. And many times grandparents are going, they push a button, all this comes up, or this. And so I think that's a big area, too, for grandparents to become more aware of.
Well, that's one thing you hear a lot in common from grandparents. I got to get my grandkid over here to fix this for me. Get my phone hooked up or whatever.
That's right.
So that's a real good point how the grandchild
Yes.
can help the grandparent.
Yes.
The technology. Don't leave home without your grandchild. That'll get you-
They know
down
things
the road.
more than what we sometimes do.
It's amazing. But let me ask you this. Do grandparents have an area to go for their respite? You mentioned the Woodbury County has a grandparents. There's something there. Are there the support services for grandparents?
I know that Woodbury County Extension Office they have a class, in a sense. I'm not sure of, maybe some churches might have some support groups for grandparents, in a sense. They can, sometimes they'll develop them themselves by the connections that they have through church or other organizations, because I think support is really important. And they might go to, I want to call it the senior center, but it's not called that, Active Generations. Yes, they might be doing some things too that can be helpful. Yeah.
Very interesting. What kind of, on the educational side, what can grandparents learn from their kids? We talked about technology, but the kids' lifestyle today is changing, and I can assume that it's only absolutely contrary to the way grandparents probably raised their kids growing up. So, Brenda, you want to share any comments on that?
It's a fast-paced world, and to keep up, sometimes you just have to recognize you can't. And again, it's talking to your grandchild and just having that open communication. When you talk about technology, there's good use of technology, and then there's some very, very scary things. And reaching out and getting that information, clothing styles. What's acceptable today may be very different than what was acceptable before. And finding a common ground of what you both are comfortable with. Some grandparents may not be comfortable with the tummy showing, and you have to have a conversation and come to an agreement and a resolution to some of those things. It's definitely a different world, but that doesn't mean you can't navigate it together if you both talk and listen. Listening is key.
Isn't that so many things we do? That communication process is so important. And I think, this has been a real interesting discussion today. Rosie, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise. Brenda, always, it's great. Folks, anything you want to talk about or a topic you'd like us to go over, please give us a call at 293-4900. That's Family Services, 293-4900. We always talk about every week about a little sense of humor and how humor is good for your mental health. So here's your humor of the day. A lady noticed her husband standing on the bathroom scale, sucking in his stomach, thinking he was trying to weigh less with this maneuver. So she commented, "I don't think that's going to help." And he said, "Sure it does. It's the only way I can see the numbers." Okay, folks, it's always been great. We want to thank you for listening in. Give a shout out to Jan Dewar. Jan's there every week. And we also want to give a shout out to all the grandparents who are parenting. You're special people. Join us next week here on KSCJ when things aren't going well. We'll see you next Saturday morning.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails.